Welcome, early birds. We're going to start shortly at the top of the hour. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes. If you would like to be eligible for CPE credits, and I'll repeat this in a little bit, but if you are here for CPE credits, please know that you need to answer all poll questions. We have to submit that to NASBA, so please be ready to do that. We have some good poll questions, which we will share with the group when we get the answers from everyone. If during the course of the webinar you have any questions for our speaker, please use the Q&A control, and if we can't answer the question live during the webinar, we will certainly get back to you. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. Thank you for joining us today. Well, welcome, everybody. It is the top of the hour, and we're glad that you're here for Demolishing Construction Management Challenges with Sage Intacct. A couple of housekeeping notes before I introduce our speaker and we get started. One, we will be sending all of you a recording, a copy of the slides, and a survey following the webinar. That may take up to 48 hours, but you will be getting a recording and the slides as well as a survey. Please tell us how we're doing. Secondly, if you are here for CPE credit, in order to be eligible, you must answer all poll questions. We will be having 4 poll questions during the course of the presentation. Having said that, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Melissa Powell. Melissa is a senior solution architect here at LBMC Technology Solutions on the Sage Intacct team. She has a background in accounting, where she served in both corporate accounting and public accounting. Melissa served for several years on the software implementation team before she made her move to solution architecture. Melissa lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, with her husband and children on the 11-acre homestead. So, Melissa, the presentation, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Dawn. We're excited to get into demolishing construction management challenges with Sage Intacct today. Thank you everyone for joining today and participating. We're going to go over the agenda really quick so we know what we are covering during today's webinar. So our agenda is going to cover purchasing and procurement. We'll talk several minutes about how to actually track rising costs of material in an era of inflation that we are currently in. We're also going to talk about job performance management, how to make job costing and profitability analysis accurate and in real time using Sage Intacct. And we'll talk also about real-time analysis, so other things we can do with real-time analysis, such as useful KPIs, cash flow forecasting, operating budgets, and job budgets as well. As mentioned, if you guys have questions, please feel free to put those into the chat and we will answer those during a couple pauses that we will have during the presentation. Our first subject for today is going to be covering purchasing and procurement. In a world of fluctuating prices today, keeping track of material costs is really essential for successful purchasing and procurement workflow. Inflation, of course, refers to the general increase in prices over time, which directly affects material costs in your purchasing and procurement. By understanding the impact of inflation, businesses can better plan for job estimating, budgeting, and forecasting. Sage Intacct offers innovative strategies to navigate inflation, providing businesses with real-time insights on rising prices. With its advanced tools and comprehensive tracking capabilities, Sage Intacct can empower organizations to make informed decisions and stay rapidly ahead of this changing market. Now, there are some specific strategies in Sage Intacct that we recommend for tracking material costs. Number 1 is going to be to set up accurate and detailed cost tracking. Number 2 is going to be to set up a system that includes tracking of your committed costs. So not necessarily money that's already spent, but money that has been committed to spend. Number 3, you're going to regularly review and analyze this data as it's being incurred in the system. From there, you'll be able to implement cost-saving strategies. After that, of course, you'll want to continue to monitor market trends and inflation rates per material category. Then we'll utilize forecasting tools to anticipate price changes in the future. And we're going to talk a little bit about each of these areas in some more detail. Now, Sage Intacct does offer detailed cost tracking. So implementing Sage Intacct in purchasing and procurement requires following the best practices to effectively track material costs and navigate inflation. These practices include setting up accurate and detailed cost tracking systems, and some examples of those you can see on the screen. Getting detailed within your cost codes allows for inflation percentages not only to just be based on an overall inflation rate, right? Like we all go to the media, we see overall inflation rates, but instead this is going to allow you to apply inflation rates at each cost type itself. That's going to provide you with insight into what specific types of costs are rising the most and what those specific inflation rates would be for each cost type. Now, as we look at things like our total cost by our cost codes and our cost types, we're also going to want to consider committed costs. So as mentioned, committed costs is not just costs where the money has already been spent, but where it has been planned to be spent, right? So we're thinking ahead of the game. So this is not money that has went out the door yet, but it's already in our budget or already in our plans for our specific jobs to go ahead and spend these money and commit those costs. Using the purchasing and procurement system in Intact, we can track committed dollars actually. So when we're looking at some areas on this graph here, of course, we're going to have things like our original estimate, revisions and approved changes, but also our organizational commitment, our total commitment, our commitments that have been invoiced so far, open commitments also, and all of that pulled together with our actual costs is going to give us a view of our costs in their entirety. Now, Sage Intacct is also going to provide you the capability of creating meaningful analysis tools that are going to give you insight into the aspects of the business that you're trying to measure. So these can be tracked by item, cost code, vendor, and of course, job or project. These can also be tracked across multiple time frames. So as we're looking at things like inflation, you might be looking at inflation across years, right? But if you're in a high inflation era where inflation can change month to month or day to day, our time periods might actually reflect daily or even monthly. You, of course, can decide how you want to see data displayed in what formats that are meaningful to your decision makers. So that might be reports, it might be charts and graphs like you see on the screen here. Each of those can be unique and customized to the different decision makers and how those decision makers receive information. Of course, you're going to want to create regular reviews of the data in order to make meaningful and impactful business decisions. From there, you can implement cost saving strategies where you can monitor market trends against what is happening real life in your business and then apply accurate inflation rates to your job estimates and budgets. And that's going to bring us into our next topic. But before that, let's go ahead and complete our first poll question.
All right, it's time for poll question number 1. And so we want to find out a little bit about you, our audience. So which of the following describes you? And you can select all that apply. We've got, I'm a general contractor, I'm a specialty contractor, I work with field service and or maintenance, I engage in real estate, or other. And we'll give you a few moments to complete the survey. Again, if you are here for CPE credits, this is your moment. And I'll be closing down the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see what the makeup of our audience is. So it looks like most of you are in other roles, followed by general contractors, and then real estate, field service and maintenance, or specialty contractors. So we've got a good feel for what everyone's involved in. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dawn. And of course, as we think about that question, just know that Sage Intacct really is customizable to what type of contractor you are, right? The design of Sage Intacct is so customizable that it's going to be different for everybody who uses Sage Intacct because it's going to be designed specifically on your business processes and procedures. So we're talking very generally today, obviously, to cover the multitude of people in our audience. But as you go into discussing possible moves to Sage Intacct, we're going to, of course, always take a deeper dive into your business scenarios just to make sure that we're customizing the solution just right for you. So let's move on to our next topic, which is going to be job performance management. It's essential for businesses to optimize job performance management, which is going to include achieving accurate and real-time job costing and profitability analysis. With advanced features of Sage Intacct, businesses can streamline their workflow, improve cost control, and overall enhance profitability. By leveraging this robust financial management solution, companies are going to be able to make informed decisions, drive growth, and maximize, of course, your overall success. Job costing involves analyzing the cost associated with specific jobs to determine their profitability. With Sage Intacct, businesses can track expenses, labor, materials all in real time, allowing for accurate and timely job costing. This is going to enable the companies to identify profitable jobs, identify areas of improvement also, and make data-driven decisions to optimize overall profitability. Now, when we're thinking about strategies for accurate and real-time job costing, we're going to want to, number one, establish clear project goals and objectives. We're also going to want to reflect these goals and objectives in our actual project estimates that we're going to create in Sage Intacct. Of course, you're going to want to create, review, and update your job budgets as you move into the job itself, as the job life cycle progresses, and of course, as we're analyzing that job through its life cycle. We're also going to want to create and monitor KPIs specifically by job, right? So what are specific things we want to measure by job? And that's not always just financial data. Sometimes that is what we call statistical data as well. Utilizing real-time data through integrations with third-party systems is key as well. Sage Intacct does have open API, allowing you to connect to a plethora of third-party systems. Anybody that does have a pre-built integration is on what is called the Sage Intacct Marketplace. That is, you can Google that, you can look it up, and you can see everybody on there that has a pre-built integration with Intacct. So that's always a great starting point. But of course, you can also build custom integrations into the system. And of course, we're going to want to create a schedule for analyzing your job costs for optimization and efficiency improvements. So not just saying that we're going to analyze it, right, but actually creating a schedule and goals and objectives to make that happen. So let's look at a few of these features and how they actually work in Sage Intacct. The first thing we're going to touch on, of course, is our estimates and our job budgets. So again, we want to be able to create a detailed estimate in Sage Intacct. So that's going to include things like our cost codes, our cost types, items, quantities, rates, totals, and any other information that we believe is important to create a detailed estimate. Now, Sage Intacct allows for functionality for us to go ahead and post a job budget or create a job budget from this estimating screen. You see the green arrow right there that says post to GL budgets. So we can actually create this estimate, and with the use of that tool right there, as soon as we save this estimate, it's going to go ahead and use all the details of that estimate to go ahead and create our job budget for us. So there's no duplication of entry there. We can create our estimate one time and use that as our base or our sounding board to go ahead and create that job budget. From the creation of the job budget, we can then use, of course, that job budget to attract expected revenues, costs, expected profit margin, and much more. Now, by monitoring key metrics such as revenue, profitability, and cash flow in real time, organizations can make data-driven decisions and take immediate action to address any issues or capitalize on opportunities that are available. With Sage Intacct, businesses can easily access and analyze these KPIs, enabling them to stay ahead in today's fast-paced and competitive business landscape. Real-time job costing with Sage Intacct enables companies to monitor project costs and profitability on a continuous basis. This is going to allow for proactive decision making. By integrating data also from various sources and maintaining data consistency, businesses can achieve accurate job costing, identify areas for optimization, and ultimately maximize profit. Very important again to identify those KPIs that are important for your organization to measure. As you see on the screen here, this dashboard has accumulation of information, and some of that information is financial in nature, and other pieces of information are statistical in nature. So, my active job count, or if I'm counting new jobs this month, right? Those are statistical in nature. They're not necessarily financial data, but it's types of data that is important for us to get into our accounting system because then we can, of course, display it on dashboards or reports or even use it in computations in order to do calculations and other things that might be important for the organization. When we're thinking about third-party systems, we're going to think about any third-party systems again that are going to be important to pull into Sage Intacct or connect to Sage Intacct. Again, let's think about the fact that some of those third-party systems, like payroll, right, are going to have financial data that's key to get to our accounting systems. But there may be other systems as well that don't necessarily have a ton of financial data that we need to pull, but they may again have statistical information that is important. Even those types of system, we want to connect into Sage Intacct because the goal again is real-time data. So if we have real-time data being recorded in a third-party system, even if it's not financial, but we want to get that statistical information into Intacct, a third-party connection is going to be key to doing that. Once we get those connections into Sage Intacct and it's bringing in financial data, it's bringing in statistical data all into one source, Sage Intacct is really going to become our source of truth. That way your analysis can be done in one place and your business can have one main source of truth for reference for all of their reporting and analytics. Now, your dashboards can be customized with KPI indicators, reports, of course, even charts and graphs and visualizations that would be important for a specific decision maker in your business. These tools can be narrowed down and viewed again by specific things that are important to that person, such as maybe I want to narrow it by job or project. Maybe I want to narrow it by a specific customer or even a site or location, right? So I can have several different of those prompts in order to narrow the information down in ways that are important for me to see. Once analysis metrics are decided, again, implement a regular schedule for analysis to be completed with your team and key decision makers. So it's important not to just say we are going to analyze this data, right? But let's actually create a schedule and bring all of our team members and all of our decision makers together on that schedule where we can analyze the data in order to have an output of decisions that need to be made. Now let's go ahead and go into poll question number 2.
Great. Right. Well, question number 2. And again, we're trying to get a feel for what type of contractors are in the audience. And this is multiple choice. You can choose all that apply, whether you are commercial, industrial, or specialty or trade contractor. The last construction webinar we had a lot of home builders, residential builders. We also have the option for civil site, highway heavy, real estate developers, and of course, other. So we are going to close down the poll question in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here are our results. Once again, other is the big winner, followed by real estate, and then commercial industrial. So thanks for sharing the information.
Great. Thank you, Dawn. Now we're going to move into our last point for today, which is real-time analysis. Now, I've talked about real-time analysis quite a bit throughout this presentation. We are going to talk about it a little bit more, and that's because real-time analysis is very, very important to Sage Intacct. The goal overall of using a system like Sage Intacct that allows you to connect to third-party systems, pull in financial, pull in other types of data, of course, is that instead of making reactionary types of decisions, that we are enabled to forecast and look ahead and make decisions for the organization that are going to be proactive instead of reactive. And that is really the goal of real-time analysis. To achieve real-time visibility, businesses are going to have to focus on key elements. So creating, again, useful KPIs, implementing cash flow forecasting is very important, and mastering those operational and job budgets. KPIs are going to provide you measurable goals and benchmarks to track your performance. Your cash flow forecasting is going to help predict the future cash flow to anticipate and address financial challenges that the business might have. Operational and job budgets are going to enable effective resource allocation and expense control. And by combining these elements together, businesses can gain clear, up-to-date understanding of their financial position and make informed decisions for success. Now start by identifying the key metrics that align with your business objectives. Ensure these metrics are SMART. Use the anagram SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Okay. Communicate, of course, the KPIs to your team and provide necessary support to achieve those KPIs. Start by analyzing your historical data to consider future factors that might impact your cash flow, such as seasonality, trends, or inflation, as we've talked about. Utilize cash flow forecasting techniques like the direct method, indirect, or rolling forecast to help you project future cash flows. By creating those detailed budgets, operational budgets or job budgets, different departments, cost categories, and jobs, that's going to give you the ability to allocate resources effectively, identify areas of potential overspending or inefficiency, and of course, make necessary adjustments. Sage Intacct, again, is going to give you the ability to bring in GAAP and non-GAAP type of information. So financial data and maybe things that are considered statistical data or outside the norm of GAAP financial data. So industry specific metrics and even that commitment book that we talked about would be something considered non-GAAP data, because when we're talking about our commitments, we're talking about money that hasn't actually been spent yet, right? But it's still important to track those things because, again, we have already committed or projected that we are going to spend that money. Utilize your financial and non-financial data analytics. Remember, again, to be smart in your metrics. So make these specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Now, of course, you're going to want to communicate with your whole team, including all phases of your project lifecycle. Everyone needs to know your goals and needs to know how they serve a role in achieving those goals. So this goes all the way from end to end. So when we're looking at the construction industry, that's going to include things like pre-construction, construction operation, and all of that's going to come together into our financial Sage Intacct source of truth, right? But we want to include everyone in those decisions and in those goals and work together to make those goals and objectives. Now, when we talk about cash flow, again, you're going to want to analyze historical data, right? Because that's important to understand how historically cash flow has trended. We're going to want to consider future factors that may impact cash flow. One of those things that we've talked about today that has been big is inflation, right? And really being able to detail inflation by our specific cost types or material types, right? We don't want to just apply a general overall inflation rate. We want to understand what inflation rates as they relate to those specific materials or even labor, right? What labor costs are increasing above others. One thing we've seen increase quite a bit lately is cleaning costs. Okay, so when you're thinking about construction, sometimes that's not something you think of because you're thinking of costs for building, right? Labor relates to building and other things like that. But cleaning or site cleanup is also important, and we've definitely seen a rise in those cleaning costs. So again, being able to look at inflation not on an overall basis, but to specific areas and what those inflation rates are is going to give us the ability to project how those things are going to look in the future. Utilize cash flow forecasting techniques like mentioned direct, indirect, or rolling forecasts. Charts and graphs are great, like you see here. Again, it's really important to understand how specific people receive information, right? Because everybody is different. Some people are going to do better with report type structure, okay? And some people are going to do better with more of a visual representation like you see before you. Now you can again narrow cash flow data by specific, what Intact calls dimensions, right? So I can see my overall cash flow, but I might also want to narrow that down. And with dimensional tracking in Intact, I can do that. So I can narrow it down by a site or location. I could narrow it down by a specific job, maybe a specific cost center or operational center as well. All this information is going to be used to give me better forecasting and predictions into my company's performance. Now, budgets are essential for organizations to plan and allocate resources effectively. Sage Intacct provides tools that enable businesses to create, manage, and track operating budgets in real time. With this feature, organizations can monitor expenses, identify cost-saving opportunities, and make data-driven decisions to ensure financial health and long-term success. By creating detailed budgets for different departments, cost categories, jobs, or even our sites and locations, you can allocate resources effectively and again, narrow down the data by those specific areas to look at your budgets in a multitude of ways. You're going to want to, of course, use these tools to identify areas of overspending or inefficiency, and then make necessary adjustments to future projections or estimates. Now that's going to bring us to poll question number 3.
Very good. All right. Poll question number 3. What accounting ERP solution do you use? We've got Sage Intacct. We've also got the legacy product Sage 300 Timberline as a choice, QuickBooks, NetSuite, Acumatica, or other, as well as Microsoft, either GP, Business Central, or some of the other flavors that Microsoft has sold in the past. And we'll give you a few more moments to complete this. And I'm going to close this down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the overwhelming majority of our audience today is on Sage Intacct, over half, followed by QuickBooks, other, and just a small percentage on Microsoft. So again, thank you for participating and giving us an idea of a better idea of who we're talking to.
Well, that's great to hear that so many of you are on Sage Intacct today. So that does mean that some of you already have some realization of the things I've presented today, which are great. Now, of course, All the real-time data and analytics that you currently get in Sage Intacct are going to roll over as you add on something like a construction module, right? Anytime you add things on with Sage Intacct, then those types of capabilities are going to roll into those modules as well. For those of you not on Sage Intacct today, we're also happy that you're joining us as well. We're going to talk a little bit in this next section about why Sage Intacct and a little bit about LBMC as well. So it's really important when you're considering a new software to explore the success stories of companies that have implemented that software before, right? Case studies are really going to demonstrate how organizations have improved their decision making, achieved financial control, optimized resource allocations, how they've leveraged those real-time KPIs, cash flows, budgets, dashboards, reports, and all the other offerings that are available in Sage Intacct. This is a few snippets of some people talking about different ways that Sage Intacct has helped them. But if you are interested in learning about some other case stories that are particular to your business processes and procedures, we are always happy to provide those to you as well, or even provide customer references where you can talk to customers who are actually using Sage Intacct similar to a way that you would be using the solution. Now, of course, people choose Intacct for a plethora of reasons, right? But here's some key reasons that people choose this solution. Some of the business challenges we see typically is reporting is very manual. It's delayed, meaning it's all after the fact. It's not real time, right? And it might tend to be inaccurate, especially if you're having to use a reporting system that's outside the system, like Excel or something else. Accountants, we all love Excel, right? But we do know if somebody changes a formula or clicks on a wrong cell, it can easily mess up everything in that sheet, right? So doing things inside the system instead of outside the system is always going to give you the best results. Again, a lot of people struggle with not having real-time reporting. Okay, so the goal is really to have real-time analytics using the Open API, using our integrations, bringing in financial data, bringing in statistical data, and having that type of look forward on a day-to-day basis where we can make financial decisions instead of waiting till month-end close and then looking backwards at the prior month, right? Now, tracking project costs is another thing that comes up with other systems. Some people say it's nearly impossible to track specific jobs or project costs in other systems. As mentioned, Sage Intacct has a ton of dimensions for tracking, and jobs and projects is one of those. Data being soiled across multiple disconnected systems. So again, we talked about the importance of third-party integrations and bringing those systems together. When systems are siloed, right, and they're not talking to each other or connected to each other, it's going to be a manual process if you want to get data from one into another. And again, anytime there's a manual process like that, we are prone to error. Error can occur, and then you're going to look at the two systems and our data is going to be different. And then we're going to have to spend hours figuring out why. Right? We don't want to do that. Ideally, we want systems to be integrated so we know that they're always talking to each other, information's going back and forth, and it's always going to be the same in each system. Another thing we hear is manual consolidations, right? Adding days to your close. Sage Intacct does have the ability to automate your consolidations. Some people put those on a recurring schedule towards the end of the month. Some people do their consolidations more often, so that's an option as well. Some people even do them as often as every day. Okay, so those things can be automated and placed on a schedule, reoccurrence of your choice, in order for those things to happen automatically. The close process, right? So the close process is always a pain point for accountants. When I was in corporate accounting, I still have nightmares about the close. Now, fortunately, I'm about several years out of that. I do have a sister who's still in accounting, and she tells me her nightmares about month-end close, so I still get to remember them on an often basis. But the goal with Intact, if you've ever listened to Aaron Harris, which is Sage's CTO, Aaron talks a lot about eliminating the close. Now, when you hear that as an accountant, you probably think that that is completely impossible and that will never happen. But when you listen to Aaron talk and you listen to some of the things he's talking about, when he talks about eliminating the close, you actually start to realize that it is possible. It is possible as long as certain things are in place and with certain tools. Those tools are being developed in Sage Intacct continuously in order to reach the goal of hopefully someday eliminating the close and basically having a reoccurring close where your close is just always happening. Your close is something that happens every day, every hour. It's not something that just comes at the end of the month that you're dealing with at that point. Reconciliations is another thing we hear of course. Again, reconciliations can be one of those things at the end of the month, part of your close process, that are really, really time consuming and cumbersome, right? It can easily snowball into hours and hours. Sage Intacct does have automation tools in the ways of connecting your banks and connecting your credit card feeds in order to do auto matching and streamline those reconciliations. Again, reconciliations, just like consolidations, don't have to just be done at the end of the month. You can actually go in and reconcile every single day and complete your final reconciliation at the end of the month, but you do not have to wait until the end to do everything. So again, that plays into really eliminating the close or switching to a more continuous close type of program. Billing, right? Billing is another pain point, it being long, manual, and error prone. With some of the process we talked about here today, all of these things are going to, of course, feed into your billing. So if you have billing that is dependent upon time, upon potential expense reports, on, AP bills that might be billable or purchasing things that might be billable, all of those things are going to flow into your billing automatically with Intacct, making your billing a more streamlined procedure. Now, inaccurate time tracking is another thing that comes up. That's going to lead to revenue leakage, right? We want to be really accurate on our time tracking, especially if you have time and materials types of projects. But even if you don't, even if you have fixed fee types of projects, time tracking is still important, especially even tracking time by job or project and by task as well, right? Because task or phase of the project, because it's those types of things that we want to analyze, right, to ensure that our fixed fees are appropriate for the actual time that's being spent on jobs or projects and certain phases and certain tasks. Okay. Another thing we hear, of course, is other systems can't scale with the organization, right? So, as your organization grows, can the accounting system grow with you? Of course, switching to a new accounting system is a big investment up front, right? And so one of the key things is making sure that that system can scale with you as you grow. I always say during my discovery with people that implementing an accounting system is never fun, but we try to make it the least painful as possible, right? So the thing is, in saying that, is you don't want to implement a system and then 3 years down the road have to implement another system again. Okay, Sage Intacct is designed to grow with you. So it handles organizations that are just now crossing from small to mid-sized, okay, all the way up to organizations that are really hitting on the enterprise level. So this system is designed to grow and scale with you. Now, a little bit about LBMC. Okay, so LBMC is a technology company. We have a lot of things we do in technology, not just Sage Intacct. We've been around since 1996. We have software consultants, network engineers, developers, project managers, business managers. We are part of the top 50 accounting and business consulting firms in the United States. LBMC Tech has 3 locations, Knoxville, Nashville, and Charlotte offices, but we serve all around the United States and even outside of the United States. We're nationally recognized in accounting today, and all the solutions we represent are in Gartner's top Magic Quadrant area. Okay, so we do a lot of things. We don't just do Sage Intacct because we're part of a larger CPA and audit firm as well. We all have that accounting type of knowledge, right? So we bring that into the business. Even our Sage Intacct team does implementations, but we also do business process reviews. We also do report writing and other things that your business might need as well. Just to highlight some of the awards that we have won as a technology partner. Okay, so obviously we're a Sage tech partner, but we have other products we support as well, like Highland, okay, Microsoft, those other things as well. So we are an organization that has familiarity with a lot of different things. And so we bring a lot to the table when we come and assess your technology needs. And of course, we're really invested in your long-term success. Okay, you're not going to outgrow us or Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct is also not the only AICPA endorsed accounting system. Okay, again, you are not going to outgrow anything, and we're going to be the right partner for you long term. So again, if there's things you run into outside of the scope of just your accounting software, whether it's you need employment solutions, or maybe you need a business process review, maybe you need network engineering or IT security, we have all of those things available to you. We are going to move into poll question number 4.
Great. All right. Poll question number 4. I'm interested in learning more about, and you can select all that apply, construction ERP. Melissa was just talking about some of the other things that we do. One way that we help our customers is with cybersecurity, as well as managed IT. We also can help with CRM or CXM. And we have document management solutions. So if there are certifications, licenses, things like that that you need to track, we may have a document management solution for you. And then we also do integration and software development, business process automation, and you can always choose none of the above. And speaking of integration and software development, before I close this out, Melissa, a question that came up is that you had shared that Sage Intacct can be the center of gravity, and there were other solutions, third-party solutions that you had on the slide. Can data from those solutions be shared through the Sage Intacct dashboard? And does it require any additional like fees or services to get them integrated so that you can share them?
That's a great question. Yep. So again, the idea is that we are going to bring data in from other systems and bring it into Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct is going to look at financial data, but it's also going to look at statistical type of data. So any type of, counts, metrics, other things like that we want to bring in, absolutely. Now, when somebody says, can all types of data be brought in and displayed on a dashboard? I never want to say yes anytime we're just generalizing, right? Because I always want to actually look at the use case just to validate. But that is something that we would do during discovery. So during discovery, we're always going to talk about the different goals that you have. So if your goal is, hey, I do want Sage Intacct to be my one source of truth, and I want to be able to have project managers, construction managers, and other people, maybe field service technicians, even if that's my industry, be able to log into Intacct and see all the information that would be important to them. We're going to go through what type of information that is, and we're going to validate if we can pull it in from an outside system into Sage Intacct. So I will say for the most part, the answer is going to be yes, but we are going to go through a validation process just to ensure that if that's your goal, that we can get those metrics in and display them, obviously, in a fashion that's appropriate.
Great. I'm going to share the results of the poll, and then I have another question for you.
Yep, and we're going to go into Q&A right after this. So if any of you
Okay,
have
great.
questions, go ahead and start putting those questions in right now, and then we can get into Q&A.
Great. So the other question that I have in the Q&A section is regarding KPIs. And how can those be individualized? Are they by department? Are they by location? Are they by role? Like, for example, project manager, line of business, or CFO?
Yep, great question. So first off, I'll say that KPIs are individualized. So again, we're going to talk about the different metrics that are important for your organization to measure. So if you say something like, my job count this month, I want to know how many new jobs we've incurred every month, and I want to have that on a dashboard so I know how many new ones we're either signing or potentially even I want to know how many we're starting in the month, right? If that's a key metric I want on my dashboard, we're going to put that on a dashboard or identify that as a metric. Then we're also going to identify, okay, who needs to see this information? Is it something that just maybe a manager would see? Is it something that the controller and the CFO would also like to see? Is it just something that project managers would like to see? So we can specify who that information would be distributed to. So that would be kind of the second step. And that could go to all of those people. If that information is important to all those people, they would each have their own dashboard, but that information could be distributed across those. Then we're going to identify on the dashboard for those people, how might they want to narrow that information down? So maybe a CFO just would want to see that information overall. Okay. But for someone like a project manager, they're probably going to want to drill that information down maybe by customer. Okay. So if I have customers doing multiple jobs, I might want to be able to narrow down how many jobs are starting this month, this quarter, or this year for that particular customer, right? So I'm going to decide how those particular people that are looking at these dashboards want to narrow that down and then give those filters available on those dashboards. That way they can narrow down by site, by customer, by job, by department, however they need to actually see the information.
Great. You mentioned the AICPA, but I didn't hear what it was about. I think this relates to Melissa mentioning that Sage Intacct is the first and only accounting software that has been endorsed by the AICPA.
Yep. So if you don't know who the AICPA is, you can definitely Google them. So that's basically an organization that stands for, accounting standards, also applies to ensuring people are using GAAP accounting and applying the appropriate accounting rules. And so the AICPA went out and they did their own kind of case study, and they looked at all the available accounting softwares out there. And Sage Intacct was actually the only one that they chose to endorse. So when you're using Sage Intacct, you can be very, very sure that the structure of Intacct is going to follow GAAP, follow general, accounting rules and principles. Now, as you saw during the presentation, you can also bring in non-GAAP type of information, but it's kind of displayed separately, right? So anytime you're getting audited or anything like that, they're going to be looking at those GAAP financials. And then anything else that's outside GAAP is in a little kind of separate section, or what we call a separate book in Intacct, right, where that type of information is housed. So you can do both, but it ensures that it gives us that AICPA endorsement, and it makes sure that the accounting system is, of course, up to code with GAAP.
Okay, here's another question. This is very specific. Does Sage Intacct connect with build tools?
build tools. I am not sure. We can definitely put a link to the marketplace so everybody has that. It is called the Sage Intacct Marketplace. So if you Google it, it will come up as well. But the marketplace, you can search by type or actual name. So if I'm searching for a specific name of a third-party system, I can type that in and it will come up. Or if I just want to search through, let's say, AP solutions, right? I would look at that, or payroll solutions, and I could see all the different things that have a pre-built connection. Now, again, if you don't see them on that marketplace, that's okay. We could just develop a custom integration. We do have a software development team that, of course, could look at that and scope that out. Or sometimes us and other partners as well have developed kind of some plug and play type integrations with certain things, right? So that makes it a lot easier and simpler than to do a full custom integration. So we can, of course, always see if there's something that's kind of plug and play that fits your scenario as well.
Well, one thing that I wanted to mention, and give everyone a last chance to get any additional questions in, but LBMC Technology Solutions are implementation experts. And in fact, Sage Intacct has us do many of the implementations that they sell direct. And so
Mhm.
Melissa has been a part of those projects. But what, Melissa, why don't you elaborate on some of the benefits of working with us and what a customer would expect and enjoy from working with us?
Yeah, definitely. So keep in mind, you can buy through us, or some people do buy through Intact Direct. I will make sure to just note that there is no price difference in that. Okay. Sometimes people think, okay, if I actually go to Sage Intacct themselves, I'm going to potentially get a better deal on the pricing. Okay. That is not the case. We all have the same pricing and things like that. So pricing is always going to be consistent for the software subscription. Okay. Now, when you're coming and you're evaluating, should I go to Sage Intacct or should I look at a partner like LBMC? One of the things to keep in mind, of course, is that, if you're talking to a Sage Intacct sales rep, that sales rep knows Sage Intacct, and that potentially might be all that they know. Okay. Now at LBMC, because we are an overall technology company, as mentioned, we play in a lot of different spaces, a lot of different softwares. We also have customization. We can build software from scratch. We have our own intellectual property that we have built out. We can do custom integrations. So let's say you come to us and, we're doing our discovery and we're evaluating Sage Intacct, and so far it's a great fit. And we get into one piece of the discovery and we determine that Sage Intacct can just not do what you are going to need it to do. That is okay, because for us, we don't just have Sage Intacct as a resource, right? We might say, okay, we've identified an area where we actually might need to use another tool, bring that into Intacct as kind of a plugin, right? So potentially still use the same interface as Sage Intacct, or maybe we need to do some customization in the Intacct environment to make it do what you need it to do. But we have those options because of the fact that we're an overall technology company. So this isn't the only solution that we bring to the table, which of course gives us a broader scope of looking at the issues, identifying any places that there is a gap, and then being able to fill that gap with a solution for you.
Excellent. Do you want to go to the next slide? We don't have any more questions, but that
Yeah.
that brought up something else. One of the things that LBMC does is that every single quarter we offer hot topics, and it's sort of the last upcoming webinar that you see on this slide. And it's a 2-hour presentation. And the first hour is always a deep dive into the Sage Intacct core financials. So coming up in December, it's that time of year, 'tis the season for tax filing. And so we're going to be doing a deep dive into gearing up for processing those 1099s. And that's the first hour. And then the second hour, what we do is we always give an overview of the highlights of the quarterly releases that Sage Intacct does each quarter. And one of the things that Melissa talked about earlier in the presentation was reconciliation. So a couple of quarters ago, one of our in-house Sage Intacct experts did an hour on reconciliation. Last quarter, another one of our consultants did an hour on budgeting within Sage Intacct. And so what we try to do is we try to provide very, very rich learning opportunities, because we believe that, you know, the more you know about the software, the more proficient you are on the software, the more benefit your organization will enjoy. So here are a few things coming up. In addition to that, you are welcome to attend all of them. Coming up on Monday, my colleague in network engineering will be hosting a webinar on building cyber strength. And the speaker is going to be a former FBI agent who worked in the area of cybersecurity. So you won't want to miss that one. On November 9th, we are doing Journey to the Cloud. And what's interesting here is that usually Journey to the Cloud, we typically only offer to our clients who are on legacy systems. But in this case, we're bringing in our change management expert, and that is applicable to all things. Certainly any kind of ERP implementation that you are doing, but also there's going to be principles and best practices shared there for any sort of change that you're looking to implement within your organization. So you are certainly welcome to that. And with that, Melissa, do you have any closing comments?
No, but wow, those are all going to be some amazing sessions. So that's really exciting to hear, and I encourage everyone to join those.
That's great. Thank you. Well, we thank you all for being here. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we will be sending out a recording, the slides, and a survey. If you are here for CPE credit, our group has asked that you give up to 2 weeks. It's usually much quicker than that, but you should receive your certifications within 2 weeks. And we hope to see you soon on another LBMC Technology Solutions learning opportunity. Thank you, Melissa, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you.